Where in that light, in that vision of Narad, where in that light, time toil, why time is toiling, what is the struggle time is undergoing, why the struggle, etc. His unseen was detected. His unseen was time's unseen work. Time is flowing, time is moving, time is doing some work that is not visible. But Narad now is in a position to see the unseen work of time because he is reading the inscriptions of the gods and therefore he is able to get the sense of time. Unseen work detected, he is detecting there. Means why this fate, why this trouble, why this death of Satyavan? He has detected the purpose of that thing already. It is with a purpose. He has seen that thing. The broad flung, passing schemes, unfinished, which his aeon flight unrolls. Unfinished work of time, which has been going on since the beginning, since the creation. It is that now which is going to get finished. That he has already seen now, were mapped already in that worldwide look. He has already seen the entire panorama of the future, of time, and it is in that state he is speaking here. Now, therefore, when he is talking like that, like a rishi, he is talking like a rishi now, seeing the inscriptions of God, detecting the works of time. It is that sense of spiritual power which he is communicating through his speech. And it is not just soothing, it is not just satisfying, it is not just giving the peace, but also the purpose, the strength, the necessary stamina to bear all the difficulties. Narad is imparting something of a spiritual force to this lady in that sense, you see. And therefore, she need not now speak anything more. The purpose is served. So what we have now here is, as far as the queen is concerned, she is out of the picture, but to a highly evolved yogi soul, there could be something, asking something deeper than what the human soul would. And here therefore now begins a new section. Ashwapati is coming here now for the first time in the canto. After that long discussion, maybe they were talking for about 2.5 hours. Narad for 2 hours and the queen for half an hour, and everybody was listening. But now it is Ashwapati who comes into picture, and in a certain sense, he is prolonging this theme. He is seeking an elaboration about this particular statement here. Yes, this is a perplexed world. This is a discontented world. This is a haunt of ignorance. This is a home of pain. This is the tent of desire. Here are the headquarters of grief. Yes, this is what here is. So naturally, to a spiritual person, rather on behalf of the spiritual person, the question which would arise is something important. Does it mean that because this world is all pain, ignorance, etc., grief, does it mean that I give up this world and go elsewhere? Where there is no pain, where there is no ignorance. Forget about this world and live up there. This world is after all a discontented world. So why live here? Get out from here and live elsewhere where there is no discontentment. So that is a kind of a spiritual proposition which can come forward in this diagram. There are pitched desires and forget about this thing. Why? Go and live happily up there, you see. So in other words, the easy path which was found by the past spiritual seekers, that this world is like this. Why bother about this world? Get out from here and live elsewhere. And therefore, Ashwapati is going to answer something, is going to ask something in that context. If this word has no meaning, has no content in it, does it mean then that this world is ruled by the outward world? The spirit is ruled by the outward world. The spirit is free. The spirit is all powerful. Spirit is not bound by all these things. And if the world is like that, does it mean that the spirit is ruled by the outward world? That is the straight question is asking. Soul has come here. It is living here in this creation. It has accepted the grief, the suffering and all the things. Does it mean that his soul is helpless and is ruled by these conditions? A very powerful question is asking, you see. In other words, this is directing the entire dialogue towards something to tell that even in this world there can be the existence of truth. Truth can still exist here. It is not that the spirit is ruled by the outward world. It may seem to you, but the spirit can emerge and express itself even in the outward world. That is what it implies here, you see. In other words, don't dismiss this world as an illusion, as a maya, as a mithya, and walk away from here. It is possible that the spirit can overrule all those conditions and be above this outward world. It means the outer world need not necessarily govern the spirit. Is then the spirit ruled by an outward world? That is the basic question he is asking. Is then the spirit ruled by an outward world? O seer, is there no remedy within? Yes, the outward world is like that. He has described everything. But is there any remedy from within? In other words, he is still asking, insisting on the answer that even the outward world can be remedied from something from within. From within something can come out and change the outward world. Now, this is a general question he is asking, but now he is making specific in the context of the entire dialogue, entire discussion which was going on. Yeah.
What is the outward world?
Pardon?
Who is the outward world here?
Outward world, what we have described, he has described. This is the outward world.
Yeah.
Haunt of ignorance, home of pain, that is the outward world.
Is it outward?
Yeah, it's not spiritual. It is not spiritual in that sense. Now as a human being, we are living in that. We are living in the grief tent, in the grief headquarters. That is the outward world.
You mean outward of the pure spirit?
Yes. Yeah. You see, you can see disguise conceals the eternal bliss. That disguise the outward world, which is the soul. So he is asking that there has to be some kind of a remedy from within. Yes, this world is like that, I understand all that. But that world going to remain as it is. That would be a pitiful thing, if it is going to be so. If the spirit is going to be ruled by falsehood, ignorance, death and all that thing, means spirit is helpless. In the sense, you see. O seer, is there no remedy within? Now, he is addressing him as a seer. Because he sees things. He does not argue. He sees things. He sees the entire movement of things, Narada. That is what is Rishi. Rishi would mean that seer. Is there no remedy? Then Now he is coming to the specifics. In the context, he says first, spirit ruled by an outward world. Then he says, spirit's will. Is the spirit's will governed, subject to outward circumstances? He is making it now more specific, more directed towards the problem his daughter is facing. He is coming to the point. Savitri had chosen this young man for her husband, and he is going to die. That is the fate, and that fate cannot be changed. Then he is asking, is that fate something which is not the spirit's will? Yes, I know. He is going to die. It is fated, it is decreed. But is that something not decided by the Spirit's will? Is it not because of the will of the Spirit that his death is going to take place? If the Spirit is more powerful than the outward world, all the circumstances, then it must be the Spirit who has willed this fate. After a long time fulfilled by the cosmic force. The Spirit's will, which has been worked out by the cosmic force, the Spirit's will, which has been worked out by the cosmic force, is fate. Yeah.
So, in this sentence, the Spirit, he is the pure Spirit, and he has a will of pure Spirit. This sentence.
Yeah.
What is fate if not the Spirit will?
Yeah.
We are speaking, he is speaking about the pure Spirit, the inner, not the outside.
No, that's right.
Do you agree?
Yeah.
Okay. So, this Spirit will. But a few sentences before,
Yeah.
he said, Narad, that the Spirit, what is it? He was blinded. He had a choice blinded.
Yeah. Blind, tremendous choice.
In 12, yes. Thus came, born from a
Yeah,
blind
this
choice.
is what I am reading
Yes.
here.
And this is the choice, it was made by the Spirit also, by the soul. How he can be blind if it's a pure...
No, blind. No, the Spirit saw, the soul or the Spirit, what you want to call it, saw the shadow of truth. But what that shadow contained, of that it has no knowledge. What the shadow holds in it, of that it has no knowledge, no understanding, no.
Are we speaking about the same?
Yeah. It has no knowledge, it has plunged blindly.
If it's a pure spirit, for me, he cannot see, he can see only the truth. He cannot be betrayed by the shadow.
No, he is not betrayed at all. He sees truth's shadow. But what that shadow contains, that it cannot see. In other words, behind that shadow, there are all hidden possibilities. Those possibilities have to emerge by entering into them. Those possibilities have to emerge. In fact, that is the whole purpose. That is the way by which inconscience can be changed. Inconscience is holding in its womb every possibility. How will that possibility come? What that possibility is, that you can't see from above. But you know that, yes, there is the shadow of truth, so the truth must be there present even in that. What it is, I may not know. Still, let me go. No, not yet. This is, in fact, very crucial. Basically, this sentence, what the spirits will. See, now, spirit's will, after a long time fulfilled by cosmic force. Spirit's will, basically, let us break the sentence first. Spirit's will fulfilled by cosmic force. Long time will keep separately. Spirit's will fulfilled by cosmic force is what is fate. In other words, Ashwapati is giving the definition of fate. What is fate after all? The definition of fate is spirit's will fulfilled by cosmic force. The spirit has seen something, but now in the cosmic operation, what it has seen, what it has built, it has to materialize, has to get realized. And that is getting realized in the course of long time. And that is fate. It will encounter all kinds of difficulties, all kinds of obstacles, because everything will spring up from below to oppose it. So basically, you can say the definition of fate is this: spirit's will fulfilled by cosmic force. So it is not fate which is governing the spirit. It is not the fate which is governing the spirit. That is what it makes basically here. It means, I have made a choice. There is something, some difficulties are there. Okay, so what? I will go and solve them. I will solve them in the course of long time, in the process of evolution. I will handle them. I will tackle them. They will be, and that is fate. In fact, that is very pertinent to what is going to happen. Satyavan and Savitri, they have been going through the whole process, age after age. Through long time this is happening. Now the cosmic force has matured up to a stage that it can execute the spirit's will. The cosmic force has become strong enough, mature enough to execute the spirit's will. That is the juncture now of their present avatarhood, of Satyavan and Savitri coming together here. It means that the cosmic force has built up itself the sufficient foundation to carry out the will of the spirit. That's what it is. So, but what is fate? Well, universe therefore is accepting it. It's okay. After long time fulfilled by cosmic force. Now therefore, rhetorically, in fact, he is not really seeking answer. He is answering himself, Ashwapati, basically. I deemed a mighty power had come with her. Is not that power the high compeer of fate? Ashwapati had approached the Divine Mother that she should incarnate herself here and tackle the problem of mortality. You must come down here yourself, take the mortal birth. Then only the problem of this mortal creation can be solved, not right. And she said, yes, I will come. I will come. And she says also, no, let's read that part again. It's very beautiful, very strong, you see. Because there's a reference directly to that. Yeah, 91.8. She shall bear wisdom. The Divine Mother is granting a boon. Yes, she will come. The divine power will come. She shall bear wisdom in her voiceless bosom. Strength shall be with her like a conqueror's sword. She will come with the sword of the conqueror, the victorious sword. The sword means she will come with a shining sword in her hand. She herself will be the soul of the divine. She will be in the hands of divine. Strength shall be with her like a conqueror's sword, and from her eyes the eternal bliss shall gaze. A seed shall be sown in death, tremendous hour. Again, this is tremendous hour. A branch of heaven transplant to human soil. Nature shall overleap her mortal step. Fate shall be changed by an unchanging will. This is the promise you had given to me. He is asking. He is telling Narad, well, this is the promise I have received from the Divine Mother herself, that fate shall be changed by an unchanging will. And now you are saying that she is doomed to die, fate. So, I deemed a mighty power had come with her, that was his daughter, you see. Is not that power the high compeer of fate? Yes, fate is there, but then there is also the strength. With the conqueror's sword in her hand, I expect that she will win the victory. Is she not going to do that? In other words, although Ashwapati knows that this will be so, still he is demanding an answer from Narad. He is demanding an answer from Narad. I deemed a mighty power, the Divine Shakti herself had come with her. I thought so, but now you are telling me that this is going to happen. She is not that power, the high compeer, the companion, the friend of fate, equal to fight out fate. Her power, is that not strong enough to fight out fate? Is what he is asking. But what is, see now this is in the context of what is fate if now the Spirit's will? The Spirit's will is that power, and it has to conquer fate. So this is really very pertinent in the context of the boon which Ashwapati has received. Fate shall be changed by an unchanging will. So he thought that this is going to happen like that. But then he has also defined what is fate? That fate is Spirit's will working out through time as a cosmic force. And she will conquer. So when he is demanding an answer from Narad, he knows that the answer is yes. He knows the answer. He is not really demanding that yes from Narad. He knows that yes. But when Narad is going to say yes, it has a different meaning. Knowing the answer yes by me is one thing, and you saying it yes is another thing. Because when you say yes, it means that you are really going to put seal on that. You are going to put your force on that. You are going to stamp on that. The occult working will start operating because of that yes. When the mother met Shivandu for the first time and she saw the supramental world there, she asked Shivandu, will this not come down? On 29th March 1914, will this not come down? Shivandu simply said, yes. And suddenly the mother started seeing the world coming down. The world coming down. When the mother is asking, will this not come down? She knows the answer that it has to come down. She knows the answer, it has to come down. Otherwise, she should not ask that question. But she is still asking, a verbal seal, stamp has to be there from the yogi himself. Yes, it will come down. That yes has the power of the whole thing getting precipitated here. So it is in that sense, in the occult sense, in the spiritual sense, that Narad is demanding an answer yes, Ashwapati is demanding an answer yes from Narad. When Narad says yes, it means that it will happen. He has put his entire spiritual force in it to make things move in the cosmic dimensions. In the cosmic dimensions. I deemed a mighty power had come with her. Is not that power the high compeer of weight? Yes, it is so, is what it basically means.